What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk with the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Euroset Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I'm your host, Numac, coming to you after the Packers' 34-31 loss in Detroit as they lose the duel in the shootout on Thursday Night Football. Great game. Obviously, it doesn't end the way we want it to, but that's a good football team over there in Detroit. Um, to break it all down with me is my lovely co-host Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
That's a good football. You see that team on the other sidelines. That's a good football team
They're
over
a
there.
good
That's
football
you
team,
just
dude. It's hard to
you
beat
just
them at home.
broke out into coach speak, and I'm not talking about Matt LaFleur telling some guy to shut the f up. I don't know if you saw that clip before the game.
Did not see that.
Oh yeah, there's some fan like the pregame ceremony of like they bring a fan on the field. I don't know if he like flipped a coin or something like that, but he went like turned his attention towards the Packers bench, and Matt LaFleur said, "Shut the f up at him."
That's
So it
very
was it
funny.
was it was a heated game in the Motor City
Yeah,
tonight.
I'd say. Um, yeah, Packers lose 34-31 in what was a pretty thrilling game, honestly. Like I thought this was a
Yes,
pretty darn good game for all
it
intents and
got
purposes.
there. It got there.
It
It
got
was
there.
not
The second
there
half
for a
the second
while.
half had, let's see, 24, 21, 45 combined points scored. So after
They'll
24,
pig.
24 in the first quarter. So, or I'm sorry, first half. So, uh Packers get off to a slow start but end up making up some ground. Just one of those games where it came down to the number of possessions that each team had, right? I think the biggest sort of swing, I guess two swings I'll say, is the Christian Watson fumble early on. Packers end up getting that one back though when Keyshawn Dixon gets a pick. We'll talk about all those players a little bit more in detail later. But I think the not getting the 2-for-1 at the end of the half really kind of burned them. If they end up getting that extra possession, that they could have went and kicked a field goal or made it or got a touchdown before half ended and then came out and scored that touchdown after the half, they I think they're in a much better position to finish this game because looking at the drive before the end of the half, Lions go 12 plays, 70 yards, and take off 5 minutes and 13 seconds to end the half. Score a touchdown. Packers kneel it out to go into the half. And then to end the game, Lions go 11 plays, 53 yards in 3 minutes and 38 seconds to end the game. So they, well, I guess starting from the top, Matt LaFleur wins the coin toss. Packers win the coin toss. They choose to defer and get the second half kickoff. Don't agree with it. They've been doing so well scoring first to begin with. You're on the road, go out and like punch them in the mouth and go score. I know they tried to play that possession game, but it really just didn't work. And I don't want to say it bit them, but the way the game shook out just didn't play out in their favor, especially when you knew that for all intents and purposes, they weren't going to try and be a high powered offense. They're going to try and take as much clock as they could to keep their defense, which is obviously very hampered, off the field. And that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Scared money don't make money, as they say.
Correct.
Um, yeah, I think honestly, we're gonna focus on big plays, the turnovers, the second half fireworks, because it was great to see like finally that these two teams going at it rather than like the first 6 quarters of these games being pretty disappointing. I just thought the Packers came out super flustered. They didn't seem, I don't want to say that they didn't seem ready. I thought the Lions just were playing with a lot of wind with their backs or two. Their backs to the wind, whatever
A lot
that
of wind at
phrase
their
is.
backs.
Yeah, there we go. They didn't break wind. They had a lot of wind to their backs. They were way more physical. Both sides of the ball. They marched down the
Um,
field.
I'd say the first half.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying
Oh,
is that
okay. Yeah. Sorry.
to start it was very like their the physicality, the edge, whatever you want to call it, was like firmly swung towards the lion side of the thing
Yep.
or of the spectrum. And it was both sides of the ball. I mean, like they obviously marched down in the opening drive and score,
Pretty
but
easily.
pretty easily the offensive
Not really a
line
whole lot of resistance whatsoever.
for all the intrigue and talking about the Packers' chances against a very hampered defense. Um, one, the offensive line got freaking punked to start the game. Zach Tom, probably the worst game he's ever had in his career. He got blown up on the Zadarius Smith pass rush. He there was another I can't remember if there's a hold here. But he just like he kind of rebounded. The offensive line kind of rebounded as the game went along, but like a lot of the guys that were like, "Oh, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy?" They were just running roughshod over Josh Myers, Zach Tom, Elton Jacobs was having a tough time out there. Like it was just like again working like a sled in August, and it's you know it's practice. It's the start of training camp and everything like that. That's what it felt like to start the game. So I felt like that's where we can talk about all the other plays, like I mentioned. It starts from there, and finding that balance of they were chasing the game from that point on, and so as we'll get into like other the offensive side, the production first half until Josh Jacobs scores a touchdown, like it was just not existent. The defense that'll come with its own set of conversation, but I just felt like when they are getting pushed around with ease and regularity, play after play, even if it's for like 2 to 3 drives, it's still enough to like that's how everything gets swung towards the Packers are chasing this game as much as they are, and it increases the necessity to be as you know perfect as they can be down the stretch, and obviously they weren't.
Yeah, it was. I thought. I feel like if they come out better out of the game, like out of the beginning of the game, this game looks a lot different. I think the defense played well in the first half, frankly.
Yeah,
Like,
I totally agree.
and I mean, they make Detroit punt twice in the first three drives. That's a good thing to have happen, right? And as I mentioned earlier, as we get into the offense a little bit, the game in the first half kind of swings on the Christian Watson fumble as he gets a big play down the field, tries to do a little too much, and then as careless with the football, gets it punched out by I believe it was Brian Branch or Terry Arnold. I think. Let me check the stats here. David Long Jr. My apologies. He recovered it. I'm not sure who forced it, but regardless of that point, like even after that, the that ensuing drive, the Lions only get a field goal out of it, and like
Yeah,
that's good. The defense is playing well, and then uh, Packers go down, score a touchdown, make it 7-10, and then that's the end of the half, right? They Lions get it back, take the clock all the way down, score on an easy touchdown to I believe it was Jameer Gibbs, going to halftime. If you think coming out of halftime they're gonna have more of the same, possibly see that Jeff Hafley adjustment that we've seen most of the year, and I think for all intents and purposes we mostly did. Like they go interception from Keyshawn Nixon out of the half by Jared Goff after the Packers go on and score, but then a long drive touchdown, turnover on downs, which was a quite a decision from Dan Campbell, but then touchdown and then field goal. But it's just long drives, and I think the biggest thing is that they made Jared Goff into the type of quarterback Jared Goff wants to be, which is little dump offs and short passes. He had some good throws tonight for sure. Some nice
yeah,
throws to Tim Patrick over the middle to start drives, and some to Jameson Williams as well. But for all intents and purposes, I feel like he didn't really have a whole lot of throws down the field, and I think they were just fine doing that. I think what was evident from the defense tonight, again, I think played well, is that they just missed Jair, and then they missed Evan Williams once he went down, and they missed Javon Bullard once he went down. Like at some point, you just can't have a secondary that you're running out with Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine. I think Corey Valentine played, and then uh,
I believe he was hurt. I can't remember
I
from
know he was on the injured report. I forget if he played or not. But then Zane Anderson as well, who does make a good play at the end. But then like
Jay Anderson
like
played pretty
almost saved them the
well.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it's it's hard when your two best players in the secondary have to kind of carry that unit, and Keyshawn Nixon and Xavier McKinney coming into the night. Obviously, Jair's being hurt, and like we didn't see a whole lot of Xavier McKinney. He was kind of a moot point for this game. He had a couple of plays, but again, when you don't throw down the field, that's kind of limits how Xavier McKinney can how effective he can be. Keyshawn Nixon gets the pick, so like makes a good impact play. I thought he played pretty well, but then like I mean Eric Stokes got cooked all night, man. Like it's bad. It's really really bad. You can kind of see why he wasn't getting snaps when everyone was healthy, and it's quite evident. And so I don't know, like that. I'm overall like optimistic. We're getting a little bit kind of like glossing over stuff right now, but I thought he played. I thought the team overall played pretty well, and I'd be curious as to how this team like develops into the future. Right? We talked about with Malcolm and Tyler on the pre-pod how that would look if Jared Goff had to throw 50 times a game in this game. Well, he finishes 32 of 41, 283 yards, three touchdowns, and a pick. I mean, he played well, but if you look at his chart, like it's a lot of stuff. You guys can't see my cursor, but it's a lot of stuff short of the 10-yard line. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven completed passes past 10 yards, and looks like to be 12 attempted passes. So just about over over a third, under a quarter of his passes were down the field. But I mean, that's a lot of green right around the behind the line of scrimmage and at the 5 yard, like 5 yards down the field. A lot of curl routes, a lot of dump offs to the running backs who also had a good game. I mean, it just goes to show why this is the number one offense in the league, right? This is a really good offense, and they're all healthy. Like Taylor Decker, the left tackle, was the only one injured on that offense tonight, and it showed. They looked like the best offense in the league, which they are.
NFL Next Gen stats. Jared Goff completed 14 of his 17 attempts for 152 yards and two touchdowns, while targeting in breaking routes, which is building on his NFL leading 1,534 yards on such routes this season, which is 224 more yards than the next closest quarterback entering the Week 14 slate. We have to have some perspective here. The Lions are the best team in the NFL. It's not just the best offense. They know how to play. They have such a core identity to them that they're unflappable. They're unshakable. Even when Keyshawn Nixon breaks in on that route and it sets up the second Josh Jacobs touchdown, or third, right? Third?
Second,
Um, Second, yes. Second Josh Jacobs touchdown, the Packers get the lead. They still do what they're doing. You know what I mean? They're not like they play to such a way where their running game almost feels like their passing game. They're as explosive each way. And I think that is very important with how they play, is that you mentioned it. Like Jared Goff is not the throws that the way that the Packers like kill you on throws, it's hitting Christian Watson for a bomb down the sidelines, or it's Dontavian Wicks, who really good game from him. Glad to see that he didn't get hurt because he got a big
he
pop
got
tonight.
walloped,
Yeah,
walloped.
walloped, and he still hung around the ball. He's starting to the roller coaster's going back up, ladies and gentlemen.
It really is going back up. And you know what? I mean, we can decide this as a fan base if we want. Maybe Don Taven Wicks is a big fan of Toyotathon too. He played well at the end of the year last year, and
Yeah,
now here he is once again during Toyotathon, like Jordan Love, playing quite well.
but I think the way that the Lions offense best operates when they're going against like equal competition, and I'm putting that in quotes because they're head and shoulders better than Come on, come on,
I I don't
come
want to
on.
say head and shoulders. The Packers hung in there at like I'm
I
saying right now, like
I
right now, with the status of their team and how they're made up right now with all the people on IR. I think healthy, miles better, right? But I think right now with how many players they had on IR, I think they're pretty close to equal. They lost at the buzzer on the road to them. Like I think the Packers are a pretty darn good football team.
I agree, and I think part of it's I understand that sentiment. I understand to be a moral. We're in moral victory zone.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it. Remember, I thought they'd lose. I predicted
Oh,
on
I
our
know.
pod that they would lose.
I understand. But I just think the way that the Lions operates, the offense, whether it's the aggressiveness, I think it's what I'm more kind of just taken aback by when watching them and why it just feels so solid and bona fide is that it does feel like when you're watching how they play offensively, it mirrors how they play defensively. Like I know we're talking about the offense, but I want to just shift gears to the defense. It's like again, they're without a lot of their best players on defense. They're number ones. And to start the game, they had Jordan Love running around and trying to get the ball out of his hands like he was going to fall through quicksand. And it's guys that we'd never. Patrick O'Connor playing at Eastern Michigan was giving Josh Myers the business tonight routinely. I don't even know who else he played for. I don't know if this is some guy that was selling vacuum cleaners and then just got signed by the Lions randomly. I don't know. But I just felt like the way that they just have this there's just something there that even for as like for all the good reasons that you mentioned that the Packers that they came back, they made a run of it. The Watson fumble set them back. The last offensive drive, I mean, they didn't finish with Jordan Love. This game did not finish with Jordan Love getting um, a chance to make some magic with what the last 3 minutes and 38 seconds of the game or something like that. Yeah. Um, I'm rambling, but I just think the Lions has just set the standard so high compared to like what else exists in the NFL, and that's including the Super Bowl defending champion Chiefs, who are going for the third straight Super Bowl bid. It's just like it. Packers are they can say all the right things and all that stuff, but it's still like can they overcome mistakes or can they overcome slow starts enough to eventually rebound? The Lions have proven that. They proved that tonight. They even proved that last week against the Bears. I mean, not even same worlds
Right.
for both teams, but yeah, it's just like that's the thing I think that still eludes the Packers right now, um, especially when you're going up against the best team.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say optimism again, moral victories. If it comes down to facing this team again, like if the Packers face the Lions again, I'm pretty confident in having like a third crack at this team. Like they played them well tonight. I think I don't think the game that happened at Lambeau early in the season happens again. I think that's just a was an off night, rainy kind of thing. I'm making a lot of excuses. I understand that, but I just like the way they played tonight, dude. I think they have a fire, and I think they understand that they can beat this team. And so, um, well, I guess we'll do the rest of the stuff later. But let's go through some of the um, some of the players. You want let's start with the offense, and we'll go through kind of player by player more or less. Jordan Love tonight, 12 of 20, 206 yards and a touchdown, and got sacked once. I don't want to say a good or bad Jordan Love. I think it was an average Jordan Love game. I think I think the way the line played had him a little more skittish, and I'd like him to see. And then the one that was critical with that is the last time he touched the ball. I think if he keeps his composure and doesn't scramble the way he does and just steps up and rifles it, Bull Melton was wide open in the end zone, and that's a touchdown. And so, and plus it's third and goal from the 16. Like you can't be deciding to run to try and scramble like that. Even if you get close, you got to go a pretty far distance to make it worth going for it on fourth down to not take the lead. You know what I mean? Like you can either go for it on fourth down from the 5 and possibly not score, or just kick the field goal and try and have your defense make a stop. And I think he was trying to make a hero play. I think there was a lot of trying to make a hero plays tonight that weren't punished like we had seen earlier in the season. A lot of scrambling where he just kind of flipped the ball away or got it out just in time as he was scrambling. Which again, it's not entirely his fault because he was on the move a lot tonight. But um, all in all, just a fine Jordan Love game.
Yeah, I mean, he almost had. I took notes at halftime just to like refresh my memory.
He had like
He had
40. Go ahead.
21 rushing yards to 31 passing
Yeah,
yards.
yeah. Like the passing offense in the first half was stagnant. Stagnant.
Yeah, is really bad. The longest play that they had on pass play was the fumble that Christian Watson had. So
Yeah.
just kind of shows you that they were snake bitten that way. But yeah, again, the drive coming out of halftime was chef's kiss. I mean, it was barely 2 minutes. They bombed to Christian Watson setups the Tucker Craft, right?
Yeah.
Finishes the
I,
drive with a touchdown.
yes.
Um, yeah, I felt like he was a little bit the line again, the protection against the all out blitzes. I thought that was a really good way to make Jordan Love uncomfortable, and it just kind of set the tone for the rest of the game where
Yep.
he just kind of had a little. If it wasn't, he still made like these great freaking throws
There was a
that are just
lot of
like
good throws. Like,
a lot of good throws, like tight windows, like the one where he avoided the sack that Josh Jacobs like was just kind of. It felt like he was a little bit on autopilot and just recognized it as he was like out of reach. Jordan Love just like takes like a jump cut and then plants his feet to hit Dontavian Wicks. Like there's still again, there's these nuggets of goal that exist in fine Jordan Love games, but I think overall the game was his performance was set up by just having a little bit of happy feet or just kind of feeling like someone's right over your shoulder.
which you can't really avoid when when you're getting
When you have
pressure
eight
like that,
guys barreling down on you, kind of like,
right?
and I think, yeah, to your point, like that play, I don't know if he would have been able to hit Bo Melton if he stayed in that pocket, to be fair. But once he made the decision to run through that seam, his eyes were not looking downfield.
No.
His eyes were looking, I'm going to try to do my best and maybe we get closer. And part of it too was made worse was what penalty occurred. Why am I blanking?
It was a hold, I believe. Oh no, it was the
It was
Christian
a
Watson screen.
yes, it was a Christian Watson screen when they're at Detroit 6 that puts him on the 16, and it's a goal to goal situation.
Yep.
So like, just kind of honestly, they were kind of screwed from there.
Yeah. And that's where like
Not in a
yeah.
referees did them in kind of way, in the sense of if you're trying to score a
Yeah.
touchdown from the 16, starting with with two more plays at least.
Right.
They were not going to have that tonight.
No. No, that's just tough. Like it's just a bad time for a penalty. I will say I'm not like I don't want to complain about the refs too much because I don't think they had a huge impact on the game, but I do feel like I saw a lot of holds that just like weren't called that were pretty blatant. And I know that there's holding on every play, but it it was a tough watch sometimes where I see guys barreling down on Jared Goff and I see Keyshawn Nixon in a replay have his entire shoulder pulled back as he's about to get there, it's like, okay, maybe
Yeah.
we called the obvious ones, but that's refs were fine. I think there were a couple of plays that were pretty obvious that didn't get called, and that's I guess where I'll leave that. Um,
My only problem was the live mic with the ref that he just kept rambling. I was
yeah,
just they'd be showing replays. He's like, "Please set the game clock to
uh-huh,
1:38. The runoff is gonna because we're in a 2-minute situation. The runoff will be run." It's like Jesus.
yeah.
Ugh.
Um, running game like Josh Jacobs, 18 carries, 66 yards, not the best. He had 3 touchdowns. I think he did great. I don't think. I guess this is a Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs kind of discussion, an offense, how it worked kind of discussion. Josh Jacobs gets 3 touchdowns. That's good, right? That's a good thing. 18 carries, 66 yards, an average of 3.7. That's not so much a good thing. He wasn't really getting anything he wanted, like we've seen him in the last couple of weeks. And I mean, credit to Detroit, they were ready for it. They're ready for it with a down squad, and I really wonder how this game shakes out if they can actually get him going, because he never really like got going. He wasn't breaking off 6 7 yard rushes. It was a lot of little stuff, as evidenced by his average, and from that, I think it really affected their passing game too. They didn't get a whole lot of play action done tonight, and I think one of the things I was most upset about. Let me pull up my notes quick. Is that um, in the fourth quarter, I believe it was. Yeah, or I'm sorry, it's the third quarter. It's right after the Packers went up, or I think it was the ensuing drive after the Lions went up. Um, would have been 24-21, if I'm not mistaken. Would have been, yeah, that would have been the score. So that ensuing drive, Packers from their own 30 go flea flicker, Jacobs up the middle, and then a Christian Watson route over the middle that's short of that was ran short of the sticks. And I don't mind like a trickery play like the flea flicker once in a while. I think for the flea flicker to actually like be super effective, you have to have your run game be effective to that point before you run it. And it wasn't. Like if you're gonna fake Josh Jacobs up the middle, he has to have had some success going there, right? And they showed the overhead replay of that play, and it's only 2 guys downfield. I think it was Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, if I'm not mistaken. And both of the safeties are just deep sitting there because they don't need to uh, fill the gap that would have been there for Josh Jacobs because he hasn't been that effective. If there had been holes open for Josh Jacobs all night where he could run through, well, yeah, of course, then they need to break on the ball like that. And that's where Christian Watson can use the speed to get down and Love can throw it. I don't agree with that. I think that really set up that drive for failure after you just go 2nd and 10 for no reason. And then, ironically, you go right back to the play that hasn't worked all game. Josh Jacobs up the middle for 2 yards, put yourself in a long third down, and then uh, Love throws off balance essentially to Christian Watson, who only gets 7 yards, 3 and out. I think that's a really tough part of the game that happened. I think you come out of that drive and you're trying to put a long drive together rather than make a big play like they came out of the half to Christian Watson. I really don't agree with that play sequencing. I think LaFleur called a fine game, but that specific drive, not a fan given the circumstances. You just went down 4 points or 3 points. My apologies, 24-21. You would have liked to again go down, score some points, and put the pressure back on the Lions. They gave the Lions defense a 3-and-out and got their offense right back on the field after I think at this point Bullard is still in, but Evan Williams is out, and so is um, whoever else they lost in this game. But
Lucas Van Ness
Lucas Van Ness, I don't think he
left
came
with
back, but
he did come
I
back.
saw him back on the sideline. I don't know if he came back in.
No, he did.
Okay, but Yeah, I don't know. I that's just the part of the play sequencing that I really didn't agree with. But it's kind of nitpicky. But I think also, um, um, what do I say? It was a critical point in the game that just wasn't there. Also, before I move on, Deshaun Hill had a comment in the YouTube chat. If you want to join it, go ask some questions. We'd love it. He said, "Was that pick on Watson or was it accidental contact?" This is from our discussion a couple minutes ago. I think he ran into him. It looks pretty blatant, like he was looking at the guy before he ran into him and extended his arms. Like I think it was a purposeful pick, but who's to say?
I mean, I think we've had this situation with him before, and he's that's not in his repertoire. He can block outside, but he's had this has happened with him before. And yeah, it's nitpicky literally, but I just I
Yeah, it's nitpicky. It's all it is.
it looked very much like a push off, like
Yeah,
you know. So no, I think your point too of just like the balance. I think again, first drive just felt really off where they're kind of. Let me just look through it because it's a three and out, so it won't take that long. Um, three, Jordan Love was sacked. Then he scrambled the next play on a second and 17, incomplete, but then it was a DPI. Josh Jacobs goes for a running play. Incomplete or 3 yard pass to Ontavian Wicks, and then an incomplete pass to Ontavian Wicks. It just felt like they were kind of the scripted plays didn't work. I mean, ironically, I think that's when the Packers looked at their worst. Is that all the plays that you kind of
the
game plan to go in the game,
yep.
they just it wasn't good. So then once they
I,
had a feel of the game and obviously had to keep chasing for it, they had a better pulse on it. But yeah, like the flea flicker, I felt like Matt LaFleur. There's kind of like these trademarks of like when Matt LaFleur is searching for it, it's the
yeah,
yeah, we're gonna have the offense out there on fourth down if we're in midfield, and we're gonna. It looks like Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit who have the chemistry of people doing like a remote broadcast together. Whenever they show them sitting side by side, I'm like, you guys are in the same room. Like they don't talk as if they are together. They talk as if we are talking right now. We're doing this over Zoom. They have the same. We have better chemistry
yeah,
over Zoom
thousand
than they
percent.
do have
Well,
in
it doesn't
locker
help
room.
that one guy is literally, not literally, but figuratively, half the age of the other one.
Yeah, the other guy's Al Michaels. So, anyway, there's always just these like trademarks of Matt LaFleur, like the fourth down, trying to get them offsides. So it's like it's not gonna work. Don't listen to Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. They're not gonna run a play, or it's the flea flicker, or it's like just these things that like the Packers get fun with it. Like they're kind of like getting in their bag is like a nice. It's a nice motion into a run. It's a nice like this. It's not like Ben Johnson like let's run a play for Penny Sewell where he's gonna throw it facing the opposite end zone. Like they're not doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just think there was very indicative of the Packers itself. There was just kind of searching for that the right balance of run pass mix. And yeah, it's like it was a fine game for Jordan Love. It was Josh Jacobs had 3 touchdowns and it helped to get to the end zone. I mean, given where they were and um, at various points of the game, but yeah, it certainly wasn't his best compared to even the first Lions game. It was far from the best running performance that he's had, rushing performance that he's had this year. So it just felt like as much as they got the big plays that they're looking for, or they're moving the ball down the field, like the offense is really working, and it just kind of just petered out, on that third down. Unfortunately for Love, it still was took a lot to get there. It took the machine needed a lot of cranking before it just was able to kind of sustain itself. I think that is the biggest word that would describe this performance tonight was like they just didn't know how to sustain or not sustain, but like get that complete performance that they were searching for in a big game.
The offense didn't look like it was humming against the 49ers and the Dolphins. Like
Yeah.
this was very kind of like the gears are turning, but it's taking a lot of energy to get them to go. And as opposed to the last two games, it looked really, really easy. And
Yeah.
again, that's two other defenses that haven't been that good this year. Like Dolphins defense has been good, but that's a cold game from Miami. We all know that. But yeah, I would agree with you. It just looked tough. Um, and I think I'm not sure how to take it, but the 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 passing game just wasn't. I don't want to say like wasn't good, but they only targeted Jaden Reed one time, and it was in the
Yeah, he
first
was.
quarter. He wasn't a factor at all tonight. Like some motion a little bit, but we didn't even see the jet sweep that they like to do to get into rhythm once in a while. Um, Christian Watson has a fine night, 4 catches, 114 yards. Without that 60-yard bomb, he only has I can't do math, 50 yards or so. Like I think he's been playing well, and you can't just take a play like that away from Christian Watson because that's what he does. But I don't know. I am. I'll say this. I'll stop being negative about Christian Watson. A good Christian Watson game. It's a lot. It's like he made good plays. I just wish that the bad plays that he makes wouldn't be so critical. A bad Christian Watson play is always huge. It's the drop touchdown pass against the Niners. Like that's a walk-in touchdown. It's the fumble tonight. It's the screen that puts them back at the 16-yard line in a critical juncture in the game. Like it's just frustrating. Our Discord called him Bobby Portis. I wouldn't do that, but I don't know. It's
Bobby
just
Portis is an NBA champion, people. Get off. Come on. Jesus.
but like it just feels really bad sometimes. Like it feels really good when he's making really good plays and he's being a plus NFL player, which I know he's capable of doing. But
There's just no there it's the ultimate all or nothing player.
I
That
know,
is what he is.
and
And it's
but
he
it that's the problem is that it's literally all or nothing. There's a couple of plays once in a while where he's catching like third downs that commit that convert into first downs at points, and that's good, right? But it's just frustrating to watch a player like that have such huge swings and momentum and be not responsible, but be involved in them every single
yeah.
time. Like we don't see this from Jaden Reed, we don't see this from Romeo Dobbs much at all, and so it's just like I hate that it's always Christian Watson. I'm not saying it's his fault, but it always just seems to be him.
Like I just thought of this comparison and I'm very well could be stretching my comparison skills right now. But I look at the Lions and how they have utilized Jamison Williams over his time there. Same draft class as Christian Watson. Obviously, Jamison Williams was hurt as a rookie, had the whole betting thing start last year too. But you can kind of both Christian Watson and Jamison Williams has missed time for various reasons. Let's just say. Um, but when we think of Jamison Williams, and it felt very gradual in how they just looked at him as like you're just gonna be a like a 40-yard dash guy, and you're just gonna sprint down the field. We'll target you on if you beat your guy or if it's beating the zone, taking the top of the defense. We'll do that, or kind of do the gadget plays, jet sweeps, the kind of things that Christian Watson was doing as a rookie, and they've phased out in his kind of play repertoire. I see the progression of Jamison Williams as a more full all around wide receiver. And for Christian Watson to get there, I just see him stuck. And it's not a bad thing. Like he's a useful NFL player, but it's still like he can give you those home run plays, but he also can take things away. It's the fumble, it's the outside of if you don't hit him for those 20 plus yard plays or these plays that stretch the field, it's like what else is he giving you? Like again, this is a terrible barometer, but it's like, is he a guy that you're going to be starting in fantasy for the majority of the year? No,
No.
no.
Yeah.
Again, terrible barometer. That is very just
Right.
like
Yeah.
P
No.
minded
Yeah.
brain, but there's
There's.
just some guys that you look at and I'm like, I trust that guy.
Yep.
Amon-Ra St. Brown
Yep.
had a very quiet night. He's
But
still like
but a guy you trust like that usually week in week out gets you 60 yards, 6 catches, and a touchdown every week.
5 catches, 43 yards for him just by the but and came up on the last
Came
drive
up
that
big in the last drive. That's almost where
exactly.
all of his yards came from. And I think that's a problem that the Packers have. Like, and quote, we'll say quote unquote problem because I think we can't be hypocrites in the fact that we've lauded the fact that the Packers have so many weapons across the board. It's because the Packers don't have a true number one wide receiver. And like I know that's much to
Yeah.
Matt LaFleur's chagrin, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think like that's not what the offense lacks. I don't think they really need one. I think they just need to like the offense just needs to be functional more. Does that make sense? Like
I
it
think it
doesn't
would
need
be
to look
more of
this hard sometimes. If it looks like it
I
did the last 2 games, they don't need one whatsoever. But it's
I think
where
it's
games
it's
like this
more
they
of
do need
like
one.
it's more of like cross training where it's like you take Romeo Dobbs out of the picture. Like I think the
Also, a bit
biggest
that's a big part of it.
yeah, it's you look at the as you mentioned like there's only 5 guys that got targeted tonight. That's not a lot.
No,
Like
and that's the
that's not
problem.
very Packers
It's not very
either.
Packers. And Jaden
And
Reed was only targeted once, so ultimately 4 guys
for
from I think the first no, because it wasn't the first drive. It was like the second or third drive. It might have been the first drive. From the first drive on, let
it
me
was
look.
I think it was the second one, unless I
I'm looking.
misread that one. But it's they had defined skills, so when you take that away, like the offense is going to suffer of what's being done like underneath routes, intermediate routes. Like Dontavian Wicks has emerged in that sense. But are you going to have if Christian Watson's out of the if he's injured, are you going to have him playing the Christian Watson role? Like that's where there's not these guys like it's again, it's a benefit to have when they have it, but when you take one piece away, it's like it changes the whole dynamic. That's why someone like Tucker Kraft, for example, can kind of weave his way in and out of it that like you just can't be so big play dependent where Christian Watson makes his hay in that regard. The other guys will profit if they just kind of, excel at routes that are kind of harder in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the field,
Right.
the yards after catch kind of plays.
Gotcha. Jaden Reed technically, like if we're being regular people, targeted twice. It was the penalty on the first drive, and then the third down catch that he did not catch on the second drive. So that was the second drive one was the only one that counted. So after the second drive of the game, not targeted again. And I think like they need Jaden Reed to get going to what he was earlier on in the season to really be a competitive football team again. Like I know he had a touchdown catch against I think the Niners or the Bears, I forget which. On the broken play or the 12 men on the field. I think it was the Bears. But then I think he's the best receiver they have, right? They need to get him like involved more and really just involve Kraft, Reed, and Jacobs and have those guys be your staple guys. Go to Watson when he's needed to go catch the bomb and things like that and mix him in as well. And we've talked about before, really only use your main 4 or 5 guys. Jacobs, Kraft, Watson, Dobbs, and Reed. And
Yeah.
let that be your offense. I think tonight it's tough because obviously no Dobbs. Wicks played well at the end. I think, and he's trending up like we said. It's just tough when it looks that hard. So,
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about the offense. I think we gotta jump to the defense, like for individual players wise. Again, I think they played relatively well. It's the number one offense in the league. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combined do not rush for more than 100 yards. Uh, 14 carries, 51 yards for David Montgomery, a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 15 carries, 43 yards, no touchdown for him. Uh, Total, they run for 94 yards. Like I'm fine with that given the caliber of running backs that they are. And even in the passing game, David Montgomery 5 catches, 33 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs 6 catches, 30 yards. That's I I think that's good, right? Like
Yeah.
you're holding to both these guys to under 100 yards total offense, and these are two of the best. It's the best running back duo in the NFL, and
Yep.
you held them to under combined 200 yards. And I think Dave Montgomery was already there. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, passed a total of 1,000 all-purpose yards tonight. I forget if it's either
They mentioned on the
rushing or
broadcast, I
total.
believe.
Yeah, I forget. I don't know if it was all-purpose or just rushing. Regardless, he's got 1,000 yards this season, just like Josh Jacobs did as well tonight too. But again, I think they played well, and I, I I'm sipping the Kool-Aid, man. Quay Walker played his ass off tonight.
He did.
Like I don't know. I'm so happy it's clicked because I think he's a big part of this defense now. It's why they've had such success running the ball, or against the rush. Should say. My apologies. Like they've just kind of figured it out for the most part as a backer issue, and now it's up to the front to be a little better, right? There's always like Dave Montgomery, and maybe this is just like literal recency bias. Dave Montgomery always gets like 4 yards, right? Always gets like four
Yeah.
or 5 yards. And so maybe that's just he averaged 3.6 tonight, but I feel like it felt like more than that. Maybe I'm just being a little cynical, but it felt like maybe it was that, and also the combined of like the 5 yard curls he was running that felt like rushes essentially. But
Yeah.
I mean, they played well, and it's hard to contain every person on the Detroit offense when you're down Edgerrin Cooper, you're down Jair Alexander, you're down Evan Williams, you're down Javon Bullard, who Rob Dombrowski tweeted a little bit ago left out on crutches. So probably not great for him. Hopefully, Evan Williams comes back in 10 days against the Seahawks. But, I mean, the secondary is decimated. We talked about at the beginning of the season, like, the depth was not good. And it's really coming to bite him in the butt right now because that's going to be a problem for them is that if they can't stay healthy and you keep, I hate to rag on the guy, but if you keep having to trot Eric Stokes out there, it's not gonna be good because
No.
he got cooked tonight. I'm sorry, like I don't know how he got. I don't know how Tim Patrick got so open on his second touchdown. Like he was wide open, and so I don't know. I was I'm a fan of how the defense played. Letting up 34 points is never like great, obviously, but against this team, I'm fine with it. And to go back like to the Packers point, the Packers were the first team this season to score 30 against the Lions. Like this goes back to my point earlier, Jordan. I think they can beat this team. I don't think they're head and shoulders a better football team in their current state with 13 dudes on IR on the defensive side of the ball and all the rest of it. But talk about the defense.
If you had told me that the Packers stopped or limited the Lions to 3.3 yards per rushing attempt, I would have thought they would have won this game.
Yeah,
But
probably.
it just obviously Jared Goff going for 283 yards, 32 of 41. Um, yeah, again, the defense made plays like it wasn't just Keyshawn Nix taking the interception. Like they were I believe, let me look at this because the Lions were 4 for 8 on third down at halftime. They were 7-15 for the game, which is not great. From a Packers perspective, I should say. Um, but it's the those fourth downs, those pesky fourth downs that Dan Campbell loves. Um,
I don't want to get into
yes,
like the analytics of the final play, but like
yeah.
you live by going on fourth forward. You live by going forward on fourth down. You die by it. Like I think
It just
it's
always, I agree with it, and now it just feels like a magician, just like, hey, I saw that lady in half. You want me to do it again? It's just like it's always like just how every fourth down discourse of every conversation, like even on broadcast, everything like that. It's like, wow, he's really living and dying by that decision. It's like yeah, yeah, that's what I agree with. Like even with all their struggles running the ball, it's still like I don't know. Anyway, the Packers performance defensively. For one, it's going to get probably a bad rap now with the full game and letting up 34 points and the fact that second half was again not great, borderline abysmal with pass coverage especially. Part of that was just the injuries. It's undeniable, especially as the game went on. And they still had a puncher's chance. They still had a fighting chance. I think that is important to note. Um, there was a point that I was going to make with the defense. Oh, the first half, I thought the whole reason why the Packers were still in this game is that the defense was giving them the chance. It was forcing the punt on
they
after
forced
coming
they forced two punts in the first half.
forced two punts after 3 and outs from the Packers.
Yep.
Like they
Yeah.
were
The
they were
the
making plays.
yeah the play. I'm sorry. The drives went touchdown by the Lions, punt, 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 two for each team, fumble by Christian Watson, the field goal, and then from there, all of the real drives were touchdown,
Scores.
touchdown, pick, uh, touchdown, punt by the Packers on that abysmal that drive really irks me. The flea
Which
flicker
one?
drive we talked about, the
Yeah.
the, the bad sequencing because that's a 3 and out um, by the Packers. It works out not because of it was it was a good decision, but then the Dan Campbell goes for it on his own 30.
Yeah.
Um, Turnover and then touchdown, field goal.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, you're right. The defense kept them in the first half because they could have easily, not easily, but if the Lions go and score what two touchdowns in those next two drives and they went just as easily down the field as they did on their first drive, it's 21-0 before the second quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's everything's a yin and yang. It's this you're searching for this synergy where your offense and defense are giving you both, positive, net positive plays, net positive drives, whatever the case, however you want to frame it. That was coming more from the defense in the first half than it was in the second half. The offense was vice versa, where net negative in the first half and net positive in the first half or second half. But guys like Quay Walker, Keyshawn Nixon, Kenny Clark had a hell of a game. I thought too. As much as last week was kind of a breakout party that he built on it big time this week. Um, Zane Anderson came up big and like break glass of emergency because we have like five defensive backs that we can turn to at all times now. Um, yeah, like I the only problem that you can really say is that structurally, I just if it kind of we saw the limitations or the futility in how the Packers played defensively. Like they were really good in getting or being aggressive early on in the first half, where they're sending blitzes. I thought Isaiah McDuffie's skills as a blitzer was incredibly valuable tonight. Like it just gave them a dimension that they needed to get some kind of pressure on Jared Goff, and it forced him to throw away the football. but anytime he's matched up on, you know, name Sam Laporta, Tim Patrick,
It
um,
wasn't good.
just it wasn't good. It was that he was outclassed. That's what it was, and
Yeah.
it wasn't just an Isaiah McDuffie problem. You mentioned Eric
Holy
Stokes. It's just
moly! Sorry, I just saw Isaiah McDuffie's tackles for the night.
15. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you're in that many plays, chances are
you're
you're
getting
not doing something right.
you're right. You're not getting you're getting exposed is what's really happening.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
part of it is that
Um,
four of them were solo. That's not ideal.
mm, no, not ideal. Like a Bob Dylan movie being released on Christmas.
Dude, Timothy Chalamet
Oh
is
my God, I
a
would hate watch that movie so
dude,
bad.
like Bob Dylan.
They
Bob Dylan has a very unique voice. And to do it well, you have to do it well. He gets like 50% of the way
How does it
he
feel?
gets like 50% of the way there, but he just can't get the rest of the way and it sounds so bad.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I thought the same thing when I saw the commercial.
They showed it, and I'm just like, like, what are you doing? Why is this happening? Anyway, the Packers defense was better than you probably thought it was, and the reason why this was a game. You can't discount the first half based on how ugly it was in the second half. And again, it's the death by a thousand cuts. That's kind of always what has killed the Packers. It's not the big plays come as a result of the death by a thousand cuts.
Yeah.
The jab, 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 and then the haymaker that knocks you out.
Yeah. And
And so
nope, go ahead.
they're so when the Lions are getting screen after screen, and it's like just 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards. It's like, yeah, that set up the body bag now. Why don't you?
Yeah, and Bob Swede said in the chat that nobody's yet to crack the golf code this year, and I think it's hard to
Yeah,
crack. It's hard to crack like and really get. I mean, like the Texans kind of did with I don't, they had what 5 picks that game, but they still won that game. I
they
think.
still want. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like that, they overcame.
Yeah,
He had a game like that last year where they played the Bears. I think Goff, if it wasn't five, it was four.
yeah,
They come back to win that game. Like that is what I'm talking about. Of these circumstances not going your way. You're
yeah,
losing the turnover battle. You're like emotionally, and those backbreaking plays are all going to the opponent. And it didn't matter. You still won the game. It can still look ugly. You can still say this is far from our best performance, but it's easier to say that and come away with a win than it is to say gave ourselves every chance possible and we squandered it with a loss.
right. And I
You
think
know,
it's just hard to. I think it's hard to overcome what Jared Goff is doing because don't get me wrong, I think he's definitely earned the contract that he was paid this offseason. And I think he's showing why this season because their offense is designed in such a way to rely on the backs and then make life for Jared Goff as easy as possible throughout. And I think that's exactly what
yeah,
they're doing. If you look at again, we showed the chart earlier from Jared Goff. He's not throwing a whole lot of deep balls, not many at all, especially in this game.
no,
And if all you need to do to make Jared Goff a successful quarterback is give him the screens and the dump offs to his talented running backs, my word, like that's a hard offense to beat with all of the talent they have around him. And I think that's why it's so effective. It's really hard to beat a dink and dunk offense that has such effective players around it. Like that's look at what the Vikings did. When was that? When was the Case Keenum year? 2018. Um,
somewhere around there. Yeah,
somewhere around there. That was the same thing. Case Keenum, not a great quarterback. He's fine, average quarterback, but they had so much talent around that they didn't need him to be this all pro level guy. They just needed him to be a game manager. And I'm not calling Jared Goff a game manager, but I really do think that they they benefit from having such a effective play caller in Ben Johnson and being able to that's one thing that is going to be really hard to replicate with anything if Ben Johnson leaves or how like he'll go is that I think he's one of like the best play callers in football for the sole purpose that it seems like almost every time they need something, it's 2nd and 8, it's 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9. He always has the right play to get them to that short 4th down to then go for it, right? And
Yeah.
it's just it's backbreaking at times, like you talked about. It's it's when I think as even on the last drive, I'm trying to pull it up quick. I think it was 2nd and long or something. I don't know what it was. Um, 2nd and 17. Jared Goff throws to Amon St. Brown for 17 yards for that first down, or the I think it was really short, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was short. Yeah, 3rd and 1 they end up going to. But then I think it was before that. 3rd and 7, Jared Goff pass short left to Jahmyr Gibbs for 7 yards. That was a screen because they
Yeah.
blitzed Jared Goff, and what you need to do is make Jared Goff uncomfortable in the pocket to make him throw these wild passes, right? They do that. The blitz is coming. Dumps it off to Jahmyr Gibbs. It's the perfect play call for the perfect situation because they need to get at Jared Goff. Lions knew it. They called the exact right play. And I think they called that exact right play so often. And I think like that's
Yeah.
just you got to give it to them. Kind of part of the Lions. They have the right guys pulling the right strings all season long.
I agree. I agree. This is a very bend don't break team. It's evidenced by being 12-1. It's evidenced by being the best team in the not just the NFC but the NFL. It takes a lot to beat this team.
Yeah, you
And
need to play perfect, and that's why the Packers they win tonight. If the Packers play perfect tonight, they win this game because they
even
no Christian Watson fumble, no field goal at the last time they touched the ball. They win this game, and it's hard to play a perfect game.
yeah.
And even
Yeah.
then, that's not even playing a perfect game because they had 3 punts in this game on like I think three and outs, and
Yeah.
so like it's just tough. It's just tough. So anything else?
Tails. I think again it was valiant. It was a fight worth fighting. I think the biggest fear that I had going into halftime is that it just felt everything like the emotional, physical nature of the game, and it was surely chippy. Um, was
Dude,
tilted.
the Quay personal foul was such BS. Dude, Quay is six
That
inches
was
shorter than
tough.
that man and probably gives 50 pounds at least. Oscar nomination of the year, dude. That was stupid.
Not Timothy Chalamet's
Not
Bob
Timothy Chalamet. That Oscar,
How
that
does it feel? Oh. Um, to go back, you were calling Jared Goff a game manager. I would like to speak
no,
to your.
I said
Oh,
he's
you.
not a game manager. I'm
Well,
saying
I'd like to speak to Mr. Game Manager, please. Can I speak to Mr. Game Manager?
Jesus Christ. That's how we know
I
it's
have no
late.
more thoughts on this game.
That's how we know it's late. All right, folks. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. On to Seattle. I will say, I think this pretty much, I don't want to say like locks in. I think the Packers are almost certainly the 6th seed now. That to catch the Vikings will be tough. The Vikings have to go on a slide, which I don't necessarily anticipate. I think that game in Minnesota is gonna be really good, but I
Every
don't.
time I thought that they're gonna fall off, they haven't, which is part
Yep,
of the problem.
they just been good this year. That's just how it is. Um, and so what do you do? 6th seed. Hopefully, we get to play the probably the NFC West winner. Is I assume how that would go,
Which would currently be Seattle.
which we go see in 10 days. So it all comes back around all
Let's
on to
do it.
Seattle.
Let's do it
So
again. We surely haven't had any terrible playoff
I
games in
had that
Seattle, have
I
we?
had that exact same thought when I saw that. I was like, great, love this omen.
Yeah.
Would rather we be able to get to 5, at least play the South winner. We've never
We
had
sure
we've never
had
had
a
bad
terrible game in
experiences in
Atlanta.
Atlanta or Tampa Bay.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, that's funny. All right, folks. That does it for us tonight. It's quarter to midnight. Jeez Louise. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate you all sticking up with us and kind of coping through the game. So, all things GSPN, go check out the GSPN Substack at gspn.substack.com. Uh, Weekly write ups for the cheese board and ad free podcasts for just $8 a month and get to support all of our work more than you already do. So, we would appreciate it. Um, Other than that, you can find all the other pods there as well. Subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find it. Appreciate you all uh, tuning in. We'll be back. It's probably next Wednesday, Wednesday, Thursday time for the preview of the Seahawks pod. So look out for that in your feeds. We appreciate you and Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you.